Oh, hey guys. So here's your guys' lecture video or lecture notes on solving equations with rational functions day 1. So learning goal. Students will be able to solve equations with rational functions. So during this lesson, our goal is to get rid of the denominators and solve the rational equations. By doing so, we can find where the rational functions intersect. So here are the steps for you guys to solve for the rational equations, pretty much, or solving for them. So you guys got to find the x values first that make that function undefined. So we'll get into that when we solve. The whole goal today, you guys, is to get rid of all the denominators. And my suggestion is to just multiply everything by the LCD. Then we solve for x, and you check for any extraneous solutions. Denominator cannot equal to 0. So when we take a look at example 1, you guys, well, first, we have to say that v cannot be 0. So this is what we call excluded values, you guys. And the reason why v cannot be 0 is because if this was 0, all of these fractions will be over 0, which produces an undefined answer. You guys can't solve for anything divided by 0. So as a result, we have to state all the values that would make the denominators, all the denominators, 0, or each one individually. Now, let's get the LCD, which is v to the second. Now, this is where we're going to multiply everything by the LCD. Now, the cool thing about multiplying by the LCD, you guys, is it's supposed to get rid of all of the denominators. So, for example, if you guys multiply this times this, the v to the second will cancel. So all we're left with is then the 6v minus 6. If you guys multiply this to this, v to the seconds will cancel, so all you're left with is just a 2. If you guys multiply this to this, the v to the seconds cancel, so all you're left with is just 1. And then from here, you guys just solve. So combine like terms, so we get 6v minus 4 equals 1. Add 4 to both sides. And then divide both sides by 6. And we get v equals 5 over 6. And make sure that does not match up with the excluded value, right? Because we know it can't be 0. Example 2. So again, n cannot be 0, and our LCD is n squared. So what we're going to do is multiply all of this by n to the second power. This times this, the n to the seconds cancel, so all that's left is 1. This times this, you guys, so this is where it gets a little interesting. You can cancel one n from both of them, but then there'll still be an n from here, right? So what's n times 4? Well, that will give you 4n. And then this one times this one, you guys, the n squared from top and bottom cancel, so all we're left with is a 3. Solve for n, you guys, so subtract 1 to both sides, divide both sides by 4, and we get n is equals to 1/2. When you solve for equations, get variables on one side, you guys, and get constants on the other if you are dealing with degree of 1s. Example 3. X can't be 0, and the LCD, you guys, is 5x to the second. So we're going to multiply all of this by 5x to the second. Now, when you guys multiply this to this, only one x cancels from top and bottom. So we'll still have an x up top. So what we're really dealing with is, what's 5x times 4? 5x times 4 is 20x. 5x squared times here, you guys, the x squares cancel, so all left is 5 times 1, which is 5. And when we multiply this to this one, you guys, the 5x to the seconds cancel, so all we're left with is just the 1. And then solve for x, so subtract 5 to both sides, divide both sides by 20, and x is going to equal to negative 1/5. Divide top and bottom by 4. Okay, now we're going to get to here. Now, this is confusing, and the reason why is because we need to factor that trinomial. So n minus 6 times n plus 1, your guys' x method. That will be your guys' factors. So now it's interesting, what values of x or n, what values of n would not be good for us, would give us a denominator of 0? Well, if this was -1, you guys, that would produce a 0, so we for sure don't want n to be -1. And if this was 6, you guys, we for sure don't want n to be 6 either. So -1 and 6 is our excluded values. LCD is n minus 6 times n plus 1. So we're going to multiply all this by the LCD of n minus 6 times n plus 1. So this times this, you guys, the n plus 1's cancel. So we're just left with 4 times n minus 6. If we multiply the LCD times this, you guys, the n minus 6 times n plus 1 cancel. So we're just left with a 1. And when we multiply this times this, you guys, the n minus 6 cancel, so we're just left with n plus 1 times 1, which is just n plus 1. So let's distribute the 4 to the inside to get 4n minus 24 plus 1 equals n plus 1. Let's combine these like terms, you guys, for 4n of minus 23 equals n plus 1. Now let's get variables on one side and constants on the other. I'm going to move the n to this side to get 3n minus 23 equals 1 and add the 23 to this side so that we get constants on the other side. Divide both by 3 and n is going to equals to 8. And it's going to equals to 8. Okay. And here are these dojos for you guys to try. So I would suggest pause the video, give it a shot first, and then when you're struggling or when you're stuck, then play the video back. Okay, so let's see. This one, so k can't be 0, because it'll make it undefined if it is. And then LCD is 3k to the second. So multiply both sides by 3k to the second. So this times this, you guys, the k to the second will cancel. So all you guys are left with is 3 times 1, which is 3. 3k second times this, you guys, 3k seconds cancel. So we just left with a 1. And 3k second times here, you guys, 3k to the seconds cancel. So you guys are just left with k plus 5. So combine like terms, we got 3 equals 6 plus k. Minus 6 to both sides, k equals -3 for our final answer. This one right here, so x cannot be 0 because then it'll be undefined. And our LCD, you guys, is x to the second. So we're going to multiply both sides by x to the second. So this times this, you guys, these will cancel. So we just left with x minus 5. This times this, you guys, only one x will cancel from top and bottom, so we'll still have one x on top. So x times 1 is just an x. And this times this, you guys, one x cancels from top and bottom, so we got x right there. So x times 6 is 6x. So combine like terms. So we got 2x minus 5 equals 6x. Now separate your variables from your constants. So I'm going to move my variables to the right-hand side because then my constants will be on my left and all my variables will be on my right. Divide both sides by 4. X is going to equals to -5/4. And lastly, now here, you guys, you can factor both of these to be p times p plus 6. Factor out a p, right? P times p plus 6. So excluded values, p cannot be -6 because if it was -6, then this whole thing would be 0. And p cannot be 0 because if this was a 0, you guys, this whole denominator would be a 0. LCD is p times p plus 6. So let's multiply everything by p times p plus 6. So this times this, you guys, the p plus 6 cancel. So you just have p times 5 for 5p. This times this, you guys. So Don't forget that negative sign. The p times p plus 6 cancel, so all we're left with is negative 1. And this times this, you guys, the p times p plus 6 is canceled, so all left with is a 2. Add 1 to both sides, divide both sides by 5. And p is equals to 3 over 5. Okay, so that's your guys' lesson, so make sure you guys do all this stuff, and, hopefully this helped, and hopefully this helps you guys with your homework, okay? Good luck, you guys. Peace.